topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the fields of health, legal, financial, and home improvement. Today, we're in the health area. We're going to be talking about diets. We're going to be talking about plant-based whole food diets. And we have one of the greatest authorities on our show today with Dr. Eldred Taylor. Today's show is brought to you by personal injury attorney Todd Hensington, and he is considered one of the top personal injury attorneys in the Atlanta area. Call him for a free consultation, 404-835-4935. Let's get to our expert. Good morning, Dr. Taylor.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
It's so wonderful to see you. I love the topic we're going to be talking about today because when we talk about weight loss, you got to talk about food. Very, very important. First of all, tell people about your clinic.
Well, yes. The name of my practice is the Taylor Medical Group. It's myself and my wife. We're in practice together. I'm originally trained as an OBGYN, and my wife is trained in psychiatry and family medicine, but we both practice more what we call functional, holistic type medicine. After about 15 years of doing OBGYN, I got really interested in bioidentical hormone therapy and what it could do to help women with hormonal problems throughout their lives. And from that deviation from kind of what I had learned in my residency, I began to look at other ways to help people function better, not necessarily with using medications. What can we do as in our diet, as in vitamins and minerals to help people function better? And so we do a lot of IV therapy, we do hormone replacement, and then, we also promote a plant-based diet as one of the things that you can do to improve your health and actually to reverse some common diseases.
Well, I got to tell you, we have learned so much about weight loss, hormone replacement from you that just I am a huge fan of you. I just want to spread the word around. We're going to be talking about plant-based whole food diets today. And this is our first show. We're actually getting into the plant-based whole food diets. So first of all, I guess, what is a plant-based diet?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, where you're eating things that come from the ground. We're talking about fruits, vegetables, seeds, lentils, beans, just avoiding animal products. Now, you can be really strict and avoid all animal products like milk, cheeses, eggs, anything that comes from an animal, or, to get started, just to avoid, chicken, beef, things like that. So just eating things that come from the ground. There's a lot of controversy about what eating meat and our obsession with meat is doing to the environment. I actually saw something, I think is on Netflix, called Eating Ourselves to Extinction. How we have to use so much land and water to grow corn and grain to feed the cows and the chickens that is actually destroying our environment. On this show, it was talking about, the cruelty that happens to these animals and all the diseases that are prevalent in the slaughterhouses. So you really don't know what you're eating and what you're exposing yourself to. So, so that's what a plant-based diet is about. And we can talk about some of the benefits of it, but it's just trying to focus on eating things that aren't animal-based.
Well, now, how does that prevent disease?
Well, one, I'm talking about the diseases that the meats can carry, either just from what they are actually being exposed to while they're living and what's going on in these slaughterhouses. I don't know what happens in Florida, but here there's a lot of chicken plants and whatever, and there are always news stories about diseases, salmonella, and other diseases that are being spread in these slaughterhouses. So that's one problem with the disease that can expose you to different diseases. And then also these animals are given hormones, growth hormones, female hormones like estrogen, to make them, the chickens make the breasts of the chicken bigger, help them to put on more fat so that they weigh more. So when they are sold for slaughter, they're usually sold by weight. So you want them to gain weight. Well, that estrogen and those hormones, it stays in that fat tissue and that meat, and all that nice fat that we like to grill and hear sizzle. It still has hormones in it, and we're exposing ourselves to those hormones. The other thing is the saturated fat. Saturated fat in there has been associated with cardiovascular disease, and we know that's the number one killer. And then there's also several studies, and one major one called the China study that was done probably 30 years ago now, that showed that the countries that ate the most animal-based products also were the countries that had the highest incidence of cancer. And there have been studies to show that meat actually turns on cancer genes. They did a study where they exposed these cancer cells to meat. The cancer cells started growing. They took away the meat, the cancer cells stopped growing. And I really got interested in this because we do IV therapy for cancer patients who may be getting chemo or whatever. And we give them, vitamin C. It seems to help them get through their chemo. It helps them to respond better to the chemo. And when all of them were kind of researching about what they could do to help with their cancer, they were all talking about they stopped eating meat. And so I started doing a little research, like, is there really a connection, with this? And there's definite a connection with how much meat a person eats and their likelihood of getting cancer. So those are all the different ways meat can expose you to all types of, chronic diseases.
Now, when you say meat, do you mean red meat or any kind of meat?
No, it's really any kind of meat. It's really any kind of meat. We're talking about chicken. We're talking about fish. We're talking about pork. And again, I would encourage you to watch this documentary. I think it's Eating Ourselves to Extinction or Eating to Extinction. And it shows how these meats are processed, and all of the, they show that in these slaughterhouses, even with fish, that they cut them open and pus is coming out. I mean, it's really disgusting. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like, hey, I don't know where this meat has been, what kind of problems they may be covering up in these slaughterhouses. So we're talking about all types of meat. Now, I suppose if you have a farm and you have your own cows and chickens and you know exactly what they're getting, what they're eating, and you slaughter them and you make sure, I guess it's okay. But if you're talking about getting mass-produced meat, I would avoid it.
Somebody told me a story one time that if you look back at the caveman, that they don't show any kind of signs of cancer. They lived a long age. And if you look at their diets, everything was plant-based.
Yeah, you see these pictures of cavemen like killing bears and eating them. That's few and far between. The only thing that
Yes.
they can really count on is the trees and the berries and the things that grew. They could count on that. I mean, and then they were eating it in season. They weren't eating things that were full of Miracle Grow and and stuff to try and get them to grow out of season. And and just our teeth structure, because our back teeth are grinders, and that's to be able to grind up fiber that's in the plants. Dogs, wolves, they have these canine teeth that is made for ripping apart meat. They're meat eaters. Our tooth structure is geared toward being a herbivore, which is that we're plant based. So yeah, cavemen may have occasionally killed an animal, but if they were only surviving off of that, it'd be more likely that the animal's going to kill them than they're going to kill the animal. So the safe thing to eat and something they could have all the time. And you got to think that if they're traveling, walking around, they're eating the plants and the fruits or whatever that are growing in their area, and not trying to hunt down a lion or a tiger or whatever. So the caveman, because we have this paleo diet that's supposed to be meat and vegetables, but you're right. The cavemen, they weren't eating meat every day. And I tell patients,
Right.
hey, look, I'm not telling you that you got to cold turkey and stop eating meat. I say, look, try and eat meat once a day. Then after a while, you eat it 2 or 3 times a week. And then after a while, you'll eat it once a week. It's like everything. It's hard to pivot. And, meat and food and, just the American society our social structure is built around eating. And, it's just hard. And people feel like, oh, I'm going to feel weird if I tell somebody that I don't eat meat, or I look weird. But, it's your health that is important, not what somebody thinks about you because you don't eat meat or whatever.
Yeah, I wonder if people think that without meat as a protein source, can they live that way?
Here's the thing that you ought to think about. Cows and chickens, do they eat meat?
Cows
No.
and chicken? No.
No, they eat grass.
Yeah.
So how do they get protein? They get it from and they eat grain or whatever. There's plenty of protein in plants. We always think that protein has to be animal protein, but there's plenty of protein in green leafy vegetables. There's proteins in beans and lentils. There's proteins in grains. I eat a bowl of quinoa every day with some fruit in it and some nuts. And, I'm not wasting away. And I'll tell you, Arnold Schwarzenegger is now promoting a plant-based diet. He was saying how he was fooled when he was doing his bodybuilding, that all he had to eat chicken and all
Right.
this.
Yes.
He was like, no, you don't have to do that. He is a big proponent of plant-based diets, and a lot of top athletes are plant-based diet, and they're top athletes. A lot of football players are plant-based, and they're not wasting away. They're going to the weight room. They're lifting the same amount of weight. So protein is protein. Protein is made from amino acids, and whether you get it from plants or you get it from actual animal protein, it's just amino acids. So yeah, you can get. That's always the question. Where am I going to get my protein from? And the biggest animals in the jungle are plant eaters: elephants, giraffes. The smallest animals, wolves, coyotes, all of those predator type animals, they're small. So you're not going to limit, muscle growth or anything like that. What meat eaters should be saying is, where am I going to get my fiber from? Because fiber is what fills you up so you don't overeat. Fiber is what keeps your gut healthy, prevents colon cancer. The phytonutrients that are in these plants that you can't find in meat. There's such a variety of fruits and vegetables that contain such a variety of vitamins and minerals that if you primarily eat meat, you're going to miss out on all of those that are very important for every chemical reaction in your body to work correctly.
What do it just reminded me, and first of all, I want to tell people, practice what you preach is very important. And I'm not going to say it, but on one of our shows, Dr. Taylor mentioned his age. I thought he was 20, 25 years younger. And it's pretty obvious you practice what you preach.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm 62, and my wife tells me I have to look young so people don't think she's old. And now I can't tell you my wife's age, but we've been married 37 years. Now she'll tell you that I married her at 5 years old, but that's not true.
I swear, I thought you were in your mid 40s.
Yeah,
you really look really good, Dr. Taylor.
Well, great. Sometimes I feel like I'm in my 40s, and sometimes I feel like I'm in my 60s. It's just a matter of how the day is going.
I hear you. So, what about these pills? Now, you hear on TV all the time that these pills are all the fruit and vegetables that you could possibly need. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah. So, they may have some of the antioxidants or whatever, but probably the most important thing is the fiber. You're missing out on all of the fiber that those fruits and vegetables have. And it's no way, we call it a plant-based whole food diet, because there's things in foods that we have not discovered. They're just putting the things in those pills that we have identified that are in these fruits and vegetables. But there are other chemicals and other things going on in these plants that we don't know. There's no way we can take everything out of a turnip green and put it in a pill or whatever. So they're taking the vitamins and minerals that they believe that are in the plant, but there's all kinds of processes in nature that we don't know or understand or can't duplicate or can't boil down into a pill. And then you don't know through the processing of that pill, has it negated the effect of the vitamins and minerals in there? So, America always wants to take a pill.
Yes.
But we love, it's quick. Yeah, it's quick. And then, the other thing that you hear about plant-based diets is that, it's expensive to go plant-based. Well, I get quinoa at the farmer's market, and it may be $6 for, I don't know, I guess it's like a pound and a half or two. I mean, I can eat off of that for 2-3 weeks. So that's my breakfast for 2 or 3 weeks. You can get some collard greens for, $3. And you can make 2-3, you can feed your family, a couple of meals off of that. Beans are cheap. Black beans are some of our favorites. You can get a can of black beans, or you can make the black beans yourself. A can of black beans it's like $1.05, where you're going to pay $4 or $5 a pound for, any kind of meat product, and a nice steak is going to be $10 a pound, and you're not eating anything that's very healthy. And I'll tell you, when you go down this road, you'll see on YouTube and on Food Network, a lot of things are going toward plant-based. If you look, I'm a big Food Network guy, and there's more and more shows talking about vegan, vegan products and vegan meals, and so it's becoming popular. And it's a lot easier to go plant-based now than it was 10 or 15 years ago, because the grocery stores are putting out, plant-based products, vegan products. So it's a lot easier now than it used to be. And if it's just like anything. If you start paying attention to something, you start to notice it.
Yeah, I'm seeing now where a lot of the fast food chains are doing a plant-based burger. There's no meat in it at all.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you I'm I'm not doing a plug, but that Impossible Burger. And now what I do is I get it from the store, and you season it with the proper seasoning, and you put it on the grill. I guarantee you, if you have people over, no one will know that that's not a ground beef burger. I don't know if you've had one or not, but when they say it's impossible, yeah, when you say it's impossible, it's like it's impossible that this could be plant-based. So so yeah, it's a lot easier to go there. And you start to think about it. You're like, okay, if I grill a piece of chicken with nothing on it, how satisfying is that? The key is the seasoning. You put salt and pepper and barbecue sauce or whatever. And so the thing is with these vegan products, they try to make things the same texture, and you season it, and you don't know the difference because it's really about how it feels in your mouth and then the seasoning. So you can season tofu, you can season the plant-based meat with hamburger type seasoning. You put your cheese on it, and there's vegan cheese that you could not tell the difference. There's vegan blue cheese, there's a vegan feta cheese. We use it on our salads. Man, I don't miss meat at all. And I am a practice what I preach kind of guy. And I've probably been doing this a little over a year now, and I'm sold. I don't think about, oh man, let me sneak and eat a piece of bacon.
You don't think about a Hardee's hamburger?
Oh no, not at all. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm in the land of Chick-fil-A in Atlanta. There's a Chick-fil-A I could walk to.
Yeah.
And I'm not tempted to go there. And my daughter, who was really a Chick-fil-A fan, if she's gonna go, she's gonna get a salad and tell them she doesn't want the chicken on it. And
Wow.
But yeah, it seems like it's a drastic move, but it's like anything, you gradually go into it and you'll find yourself. It's like, oh wow, this is pretty good. And the great thing about it, it fills you up, so it helps you with your weight because the fiber makes you feel full a lot quicker. It also helps your gut to work better, and so that you can eliminate a lot easier and a lot more often. And it keeps you from absorbing empty calories, because the longer food stays in the digestive system, the more empty calories you'll absorb. So you'll see if you start eating more fiber, what you eat in the morning the day before should end up at the other end that next morning. That transit time, we call it the transit time, should be somewhere between 16 and 24 hours. So if you're not having a couple of bowel movements a day, then you're actually not, your transit time is not adequate. And and in America, that's a big problem. And you'll find that if you don't have enough fiber, constipation is going to be the result. And constipation is not good when we're talking about chronic diseases either, because again, the longer that waste tissue stays in the digestive system, the more likely you are to absorb some of those chemicals and products or whatever chemicals that your body should be getting rid of. You can reabsorb those, and then they can cause inflammation, which can lead to other diseases.
Well, we've come to an end of the show. What a great show. We'll have to do this in all of our markets. For people on radio, tell them how they can reach you.
My website is taylormedicalgroup.net. You can email me at info@taylormedicalgroup.net. I look at all the emails, they come on my phone. So those are the two best ways to try and get in touch with us. If you're in the area, or even if you're not in the area, we can do telehealth appointments. And the number is 678-443-4000. Or you can book online. You can book a telehealth appointment online. Just go to our website, taylormedicalgroup.net. Click on book now, and you'll see all of the options for appointments.
Dr. Taylor, as always, thank you so much.
Wow, this was a quick 25 minutes. I didn't know I talked that long.
That's when you're having a good time. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Taylor.
All right, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
And we are going to go to our next expert, which is without a doubt the finest personal injury attorney in the state of Georgia. I'm out of Florida, but I'm gonna tell you something. If I was in Georgia anywhere, and I was involved with an injury, whether it's a slip and fall or auto accident injury, our next guest is without a doubt the top personal injury attorney. We are so lucky to have him. In fact, today's show is brought to you by Henningsen Injury Attorney. Man, I can't make fun of with my last name. If you're injured, contact Todd. Here's his phone number, 404-835-4935. And let's see, Todd, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Good morning.
Long time no see. How you doing?
Yes. Well, listen, I got to tell you, there's so many people that have written us that loved your show. And it was our first show, but we get so many new people. First of all, Todd, tell everybody about yourself and your practice.
Sure. And this show is going to be important too, because I've got some really, really good information for people to understand, and I'll explain that in a second. But
good.
So we are a law firm based out of Atlanta. We also have an office in McDonough, but we handle cases statewide. I'm also licensed in Virginia as well. But any wreck, any case, we can find the resources for you in no matter what state it is, right? Because how lawyers work is we're licensed in states. It's not like a federal system. So, the laws are similar, but there are some nuances to it. But we're Georgia-based, Atlanta. I've been doing this for 22 years. I've had my own law firm for 11 years. And I started my own law firm because I wanted to do it the right way. I took what I think are kind of best practices from the places that I worked, melded those together, and it seems to be an ongoing process and continuing. And we're trying to grow in a good way, in a positive way. The number one comment that I hear from clients is, or if they have another lawyer or something, I wasn't getting communication. Our number one goal is to communicate. That is key in these cases. You have to understand what's going on. So, we want to inform. We want you to be knowledgeable. We want you to understand the process and move forward from there with the trust that we're going to do the right thing for you.
It's funny you said that, Todd, because we really check out Yelp a lot, and you see comments by clients. And I think probably the number one is, I could never get my attorney on the phone. And, and patience is very important. But, when you're out there going like, what's going on? So just the fact that you brought it up means that you're so aware. And I think that's wonderful about your firm.
Well, and this is the story I wanted to tell. My parents were recently in a car wreck about 2 weeks ago. So I've been, they live in Tennessee, a driver who wasn't apparently intoxicated, but crossed the center line, struck them. It was my mother's. She was going to dinner for her 81st birthday. So it was a bad wreck. She actually had to have a full shoulder replacement as a result of that. So I've been, juggling back and forth with all of that. My dad is, in his 80s. They were active and healthy. So, their son is a personal injury lawyer. I talk about cases all the time with them, what's going on. I couldn't believe how many questions they had. And what it did is, you take that challenge that you have in life, just like in anything, and you got to learn from it, right? How do you learn? And what I learned is that we have to continue to work on our communication with the clients. We need to make sure that they understand the reasons why we're doing certain things. My dad, my mom wasn't really with it. She was, had undergone a surgery and is still recovering, and she's fine. So far so good. It's just going to be a long road to recovery. But it made me realize we need to change our messaging a bit. We make a lot of assumptions as attorneys that you understand things like the term negligence or a jury or there's going to be a motion for summary judgment or whatever that may be. And we need to do a better job of communicating that. And I've had a meeting with my team in how we're going to approach that. So it's been eye-opening for me. And, sometimes I don't want to say you do it for 22 years. You're not jaded. I'm not. I'm very empathetic. I understand what people are going through, but it hit home more when it's your parent,
your family.
Yeah. So it was eye-opening for me. And one of the things that I think is so important is getting you the information and just you getting us the information. So let's just talk real quickly, like in a car wreck situation, like what my parents just went through.
By the way, are they okay? Are they doing okay, Todd?
They are recovering. It's going to be a long road to recovery. It will be. It was actually a reverse shoulder replacement on an 81-year-old woman, right? So you don't think about all the questions like who's the orthopedist that's going to do this surgery, right? That's a huge concern. So we are trying to make sure that we're answering those questions for you, that it's been vetted and that we're going through that. And we already inform a lot more, I think, than a lot of people about the process. But my dad didn't even know what his insurance coverage was, right? His auto insurance. He had to go dig that up. I'm like, all right, Dad, because he's in pain and he's on pain medication. I'm like, you need to get a pad of paper and write these things down. This is the order of priority for how we're going to do this. And so that's what we're starting to do now, even more than we used to. So one of the things that I'd love to talk about is when you're in an auto accident, what are the next steps? What do you need to do? Number one is call the police. Number two is document the scene if you can. If you're capable of documenting the scene, document it, okay? Call 911, get the information that you need, and make sure that if they're saying that you need to go to the emergency room, you need to go to the emergency room, okay? Don't sit there and suffer in silence. Get the medical treatment that you need. We'll sort out the rest of that. It is what it is, but you need to get better. Then we want to make sure that we're getting our insurance in line, and that means health insurance if you have it, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we're getting our auto insurance in line. What is that? What's the other party's, insurance? And I was surprised. My parents live in a pretty small town near Nashville, and it took 7 business days to get the accident report. And that's not a dig on the police officers or anything like that. But there's going to be that time where you're sitting there and you have no idea what to do. Maybe you don't have a rental car, things of that nature. So what we want to do is try to speed that process up. So I opened a dialogue with the police officer. Very nice. They are professional. They want to do their jobs. They have a process that they have to go through, but it does take some time. And I was actually telling my wife, I said, it's funny, the city of Atlanta, I can get a police report faster than I can in this little town. So, you want to make sure the scene is documented right. If you want to record something, if you're capable, sometimes it's just debilitating, right? So you don't even know which way is up. So that's our job to sort that out, and we can get through that process. If we got to hire an accident reconstructionist, that's what I was looking at. I was like, oh, do I need a reconstructionist? Because are they going to allege that my parents went over the other side? But we had good photographs. The police documented the scene well, wrote the report accurately, and so we're good to go. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's explaining to do. So you want to make sure that you're just getting as much information as you can. And the way to do that is to give us a call. Give us a call when you're ready. I'm not going to rush you into a decision. I don't create a sense of urgency. That's not my job, is to do that. But we will give you the information. The way we quote unquote advertise is by being informative. And I've had other attorneys say to me, well, you're just going to give up the special sauce, right? Well, they're not going to need an attorney, right? Like, But the devil's in the details, right? You got hurt, you need to get paid. Well, going from A to B has got about a gazillion steps to get there. So I'm not giving up the special sauce. You need us, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I look online at how to do a heart surgery, but I ain't doing it on myself, right? So, I mean, I have a tax accountant, and could I do that work? Yes. Would I screw it up? Probably, right? So you go to the expert, you go to the person that you need to go to make sure that they are doing that. And you want to go to somebody who focuses their practice on personal injury. Going to a general practitioner and saying, I need brain surgery, going to a general practitioner and saying, I need you to go try this case is not going to work. It needs to be somebody who focuses on personal injury. The law is changing, and there are a lot of nuances. I don't practice criminal law. I don't practice family law. I don't practice immigration law. And there's a reason, because it's become highly specialized and highly focused. And you want to go with somebody who knows that area of the law and knows it well. I mean, when I first came out of law school, I thought I knew everything, right? Because you had to study all these different things. But I've lost that in 22 years. I can't tell you about wills and trusts and all that stuff. I can help you find somebody, but I can't do it. So we have become specialized as attorneys. So you need to make sure that you're focusing on somebody that specializes and has knowledge in that area.
Todd, I love the fact that your firm doesn't have a shingle outside your office that says bankruptcy law, criminal law, family law, employment law. You just concentrate in one area. And I got to add something else, because I deal with a lot of personal injury attorneys across the country. You might not think you're hurt in an auto accident, and you just blow it off. And 3-4 days later, you've got neck pains, back pains, and you need somebody who knows what they're doing instructing you.
Yes.
And that's where you come in.
That is absolutely 100% of the case. I tried a case years ago in which my client didn't get medical treatment for about 3 or 4 days afterwards, maybe 5 days. And we worry about what we call gaps in treatment, right? Because the insurance company just goes, oh, look, see, you weren't hurt. You weren't hurt because you waited. And, he was just kind of a tough guy, didn't want to go see a doctor, just like me. I don't want to go to the doctor. Who wants to go to the dentist? Who wants to go to a doctor? I mean, nobody wants to do that. And there was a nurse that was on that jury. And so I was, in my closing argument, I was talking to that nurse. That's who I left her on the jury for that reason. And I said, every healthcare professional knows that people get injured in car wrecks, and there's a delayed onset.
Yes.
Everybody knows there can be a delayed onset. And it was like torture to get my dad to go to the doctor, because he went to the emergency room, but then my mother's injured, right? He wants to be by her side. And I can tell that, I flew back home, I'm looking at him, and he could barely get out of bed. Like he was so stiff. And so people go, well, it's just going to go away. They did a CT scan, it didn't show anything. They did an MRI, it didn't show anything. Well, you can have a soft tissue injury that can linger for quite some time. So we want to make sure that you are getting the medical treatment that you need. As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law just called me this morning and said, do you know of any doctors? I pulled a muscle, he's moving, and he pulled a muscle in his back. And I said, yeah. I said, well, how long have you been dealing with it? He's like 3 or 4 days. I said, yep, that's what happens. You think it's going to go away, and it doesn't, and it continues to get worse. So you want to make sure you're getting the medical treatment that you need. I'm not trying to say to people, oh, run to a doctor and let's overtreat or do whatever that is. We don't need to. We're not trying to create a case where a case does not exist. What we want to do, though, is make sure that you are not suffering in silence. Insurance companies, if you are suffering in silence, what they are going to do is take advantage of it. They are going to take advantage of it. And I've seen this. What's really happening now, what I'm seeing trend-wise is, hey, we're going to pay you $2,500, whatever the number is. And we're going to pay for $4,000 of your past treatment, and we'll put money aside, and whatever treatment you have for the next 3 months, we'll pay for up to $3,000. right? Well, the problem is your initial emergency room visit, if you had diagnostic testing, which is MRI, CT, X-rays, all of those, is going to be $10,000. So they're only going to pay that bill, leave you holding the rest. And it's happening, and people are signing these. So do not talk to the other part. Their goal at that point is to lull you into, and I'm not trying to badmouth insurance companies. I need them because we have a synergistic relationship. I need them to pay for my clients. But what I will say is it's really, really important that you do not agree to some type of settlement, all right, without consulting us. If you call my office and we need, and I think it's a good offer, I'll tell you, I'm not trying. I want to add value to your case. I'm not trying to take value away. So and it looks bad for me if you've got a $10,000 offer and I come in and, I'm working on a contingency fee and now the offer is $11,000 and I'm taking the fee. No, that's not right. Some of it is, if you've gone down that process and you just need some answers, give us a call. That's all it is. It's really that simple. And my staff knows this. They've been with me for almost since the inception of the firm. And the reason they stay is they had been at other places that didn't do that. And then you're taking advantage of somebody. And I think that there's a mistrust amongst personal injury lawyers. I think it goes, used car salesman, then maybe personal injury lawyers, then maybe, a shaman or something. I mean, some type, whatever, fortune tellers or whatever it may be. But we're here to deal with you with integrity and make sure that we are doing the job that needs to be done. And we are going to wrap up everything for you and have it done the right way. So there's no.
You know what, Todd? A lot of people don't even realize how you charge. They think, well, I'm not going to hire an attorney because I got to write them a check. And that's not how it works. Explain to people how it works.
So it's called a contingency fee. I do not make any fee until you make a recovery, whether it be through verdict or settlement. Most of them are settlements. The reason for it, and if you think about it, it really does make sense, right? So you're not paying anything out of pocket. But if you've been injured, you're probably out of work. Many people are week to week or every 2 weeks, right? In terms of how they live. So you couldn't afford an attorney to pay by the hour. So what we do is we just take that risk out of it. And I look at myself as a venture capitalist in a case, right? I've got to invest money in that case. I'm going to invest money in that case in the hopes that at the end of the day, we are going to be successful. So when I evaluate a case, that's how I look at it. A lot of people say, well, is it really a case or you just take that? Yes, there is a risk level. There is a certain risk level associated with it. And sometimes if you have more significant injuries and liability or the responsibility seems maybe a little bit tougher, we'll have to invest a lot of money in that. But we know that if we're successful, that we are going to ultimately be able to make a strong recovery. So it is a great system. It works well. It allows people to get good legal help that wouldn't be able to otherwise, right? I mean, some lawyers are charging $500, $600. I don't know what they charge now, $700 an hour. I mean, who can afford that? So right. We're able to work and at no risk to you. And if we're unsuccessful, you owe us nothing. That's it.
And I don't know if people realize when you go up against these insurance companies, these people are very good at what they do. And you do not want to get a negotiation on your own, especially when you can go to an attorney like Todd and it's done on a contingency basis. Let him handle it. Because you can say something that you probably shouldn't have said.
Well, think about this. What's the first call from the liability adjuster? Hey, how you doing today? I'm good. How are you? Well, that's a recorded conversation. Okay. That conversation is recorded. Don't think it isn't. And so what about when you go to trial? Look, the first question I asked was how they were doing. And they said they were good. Now they're claiming this injury. Right. So, and I'm not saying there's not tricks and things like that, but that is something that has happened. I had a case one time where a person said, the adjuster said, how long were you stopped? And she said, it felt like a minute. And that was just a phrase for it felt like a second or 2 seconds or whatever before she got rear-ended. The adjuster argued that she was impeding the flow of traffic, and it was just a colloquial term of saying, felt like about a minute. That was, so I brought that adjuster up on the stand and said, did you really think she was saying it was a full 60 seconds? I said, let's sit for 60 seconds and think about this. And he goes, yeah, probably not. It wasn't. And I said, that's not what she said. That's not what she intended, right? It's just a term of art, a term, phrase, a colloquialism, however you want to say it. So we ended up, winning the case where they were denying the case on that one basis. So there are traps for the unwary. Again, I don't try to create a false sense of urgency, but I've seen it in depositions. What I tell my clients is, look, answer the question that's been presented to you and answer it truthfully. So if an attorney on the other side says to you, do you know what time it is? Look at your watch and say, yes. You don't say, yes, it's 10:30 in the morning. You just say yes.
Right.
The next question from the attorney should be, okay, what time is it? So but people don't think that way. I mean, we were trained in law school, and I've, been in enough litigation and how we strategically have to do these things. You sometimes can't put the toothpaste back into the tube, if you will. So we want to make sure that we're involved at an early stage so that we can give you the information, even if you choose not to hire us. There are people who, I think there's two classifications of consumers in law. There's the group that doesn't know if they need a lawyer, and then there's the group that knows that they need a lawyer and who's the right lawyer for them. And I ask that question. Do you think you need a lawyer for this? And sometimes I go, I don't know. And I'll say, well, let me explain to you why you may need one. Here's some information, and this is kind of the difficulties that you're going to go up against. If it is, yeah, I know I need a lawyer, but I'm shopping around. Okay, good. Let me tell you who to shop around to as well, because there are a number of good lawyers. I'm not trying to say I'm the best lawyer or anything like that. There's a number of good ones, but tell me who you're looking at. And many times I'll say, those are good lawyers. Now you just got to go with trust and what you feel, but there's a distrust with us, right? That people just are distrustful of attorneys and think that we're trying to pull something. Even if you don't trust us initially, we're going to earn it. We're going to make sure that that we have your best interests at heart. So that's the goal.
Well, I got to tell you, this is the fastest 25 minutes in TV and radio. In fact, just so you know, all of our shows every week are sponsored by attorney Todd Henningsen, and we appreciate that. His phone number is 404-835-4935, and Todd is with us every month. And the way you explain it, I would want you to be my attorney, Todd.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to give you one anecdote, because I was looking back through my notes because I've done some other talk shows and things like that, right? And I was looking back through my notes, and somebody asked me, give me an example of a case that you worked on where you really added value. There was a person, we had a $185,000 offer. We filed suit. We settled it for $750,000. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Now, and we handle all types of cases. So I'm not trying to say, it's got to be this big number case, right? If you are injured, and what I call modest but meritorious injury, right? It could be modest. You had to go to the chiropractor. You had to do whatever it is. You got better after a number of weeks. We handle those cases, and we handle them just like we handle the bigger cases as well. So, we're here. We're here to be a resource. We want to inform. Knowledge is power. You got to be informed about this as a consumer.
Todd, thank you so much. And we will be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts. Everybody have a blessed week. Thanks again, Todd.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.